Alright, okay, we're on. Right. Okay, I don't actually need this. Oh, there we go. Okay. That thing's not going to bomb, man. Okay. Just say a big thank you to the sound media guys for trying to get this to work this morning. I think they battled for almost an hour to try and get these things to work. So, sometimes these things are just out of our hands, and this week we'll have to go and get some new equipment to make sure that things are sorted for next week Sunday. But thank you guys for being flexible. And once again, I'd love to see you, Duvan. Great to see you. Good friend of ours from the Western Cape. And he always likes to surprise. He doesn't always tell us when he's here. So he surprised us this morning. So good to have you. And I think last time you came, we were still in Adam. So it was a meeting on that side there. So it was quite some time ago. And welcome to our Valencia folk. That's been quite some time. So good to have you guys here this morning as well. All right. Okay, any family news before I go into the word? Anybody that we need to be made aware of, that you guys know of? And we're just glad that John's okay after this, what happened this week. We just thankful to the Lord for keeping you safe. Yeah. And Marion, nice to see you back as well. I know you also went through a bit of a story, and glad that you were also safe and kept from harm. It's God's grace, eh? So,
We said Australia released Blender.
yeah. Of course, good to have Blender back, but you've been back now you were here last week Sunday, so it's good to have you back as well. All right. Okay, Mark, can we put at least a PowerPoint working? That's great. Let's just pray. Father, we thank you for this time together, and we just say, welcome, Holy Spirit. We thank you, Lord Jesus, that we could celebrate your life and death and your resurrection, Lord, as we partook of that communion. Thank you for your bread, for your body that was broken, your blood that was shed. Lord Jesus, we just want to exalt you in this place today. We turn our eyes to you, and Lord, we just want to express our love for you today. Father, we pray to Spirit you'd move amongst us during this time. I pray that you would minister to our hearts. And I pray, Lord, over this word, I pray that you would make it come alive, Lord. I pray that you'd help us to receive it, to apply it. And Holy Spirit, I pray that you speak to us through this message. In Jesus' name, amen. So we started a brand new series last week Sunday, and this is not going to be a long series. I'm just going to move up a bit. There we go. It's not going to be a long series. It's going to be 3 weeks. And so we started last week Sunday. And I want to just recap. Well, you can see it says slow down. This is the theme of the series. And I just want to recap for you, for those of you who weren't here last week Sunday, or you might have listened online, I don't know. But I recently read a book by John Mark Comer. Has anybody heard of John Mark Comer? I don't know if you have a picture. Let's go to our next slide there. That's him, looking really cool and trendy. He's from Portland in the States. And basically he wrote a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And this book is about slowing down. This book is about living a simpler way of life. Johnny, how's it? Good to see you. And this book really impacted me, and I felt that I wanted to share the message of that book with you over these few weeks. So last week's message was very much an introductory message. I just laid some foundation, and I spoke to you about the busyness of life. How many of you are busy? Just by show of hands. I think everybody's hand is going to go up. A bit of a dumb question, Adrian, looking at me like, come on, dumb question. But we are, we're busy, right? You see your friend at Spa or at the petrol station, whatever. How's it going? Pity or Viddy, Susie, whatever. How are you doing? I'm busy. Isn't that the typical answer? Hey? Do you say that? I know I do quite often. Or they might say, hey, I'm okay, but just busy. It's a common response these days, eh? And I spoke to you about this pathological business, and I said to you that that this frenetic pace of life, this pathological business, has become the new normal for the age we're living in today. Everyone is just so busy all the time. Experts now have a term for this pathological business. They call it hurry sickness. It's now become a thing. It's actually become an epidemic around the world, this thing called hurry sickness. And this disease is having a huge impact on our society and on our souls, on our spiritual lives, on our physical bodies. And so last week I described the problem to you, and I said to you that many of us are living at this frenetic pace, and that many people are tired, many people are becoming burnt out. Many people are hurried and tired, but I didn't share the solution with you. I said that you have to come back this week Sunday to hear the solution. So today we're going to slowly start edging towards the solution, and we'll look at some more solutions next week Sunday, where we're going to focus on the life of Christ, and we're going to look at some of the disciplines that he engaged in that allowed him to be a person of rest and peace. Okay, so you have to come back for that one too. So, before we look at the solution, let me tell you what the solution isn't. And the solution is it's not more time. Are you with me? Have you ever caught yourself saying, I just wish I had more time? Has anybody said that? You've got this really busy day, and you've got 20 things to do, and you just think to yourself, oh, I just wish I had more time. Or, I just wish I had a few more hours in the day, then I would get things done, But we all know that more time is not the answer. Now imagine if God gave you 10 more hours for every day of your life. What would you do with that extra time? Think about it. Think about it. If you had 10 more hours every single day, what would you do? And the answer is you would do the same thing you're doing with your allotted time, the time that you have currently. What you would do is you would fill up your time with extra things, and then you would be even more tired and even more burnt out. So the solution is not more time. The solution is to slow down and to simplify your life around what really matters. And we'll speak more about that later. So we can go to our next slide. Okay, next one. There we go. So let's stop there. So solution number one is to slow down and simplify your life around what really matters. Because some things don't really matter, right? Some things are just sort of inconsequential. Some things are not on the top of your priority list. But then you've got those really important things, like God, like family, right? Things that you enjoy in life. The second thing that we need to do is we need to accept our limitations. We can't be everywhere, can we? And we can't do everything. We can't experience every new thing on the market. And what I've said to you isn't a very popular thing to say. If you think about motivational speakers and pastors and the type of things that we say, because almost every article written on achieving goals encourages you to go beyond your limitations, doesn't it? To leap over the barriers of your own making. But we don't often hear experts talking about accepting our limitations, do we? But the truth is that every one of us in this room has limitations. Mark has them, Jaco has them, Richard has them, Beanie has them, I have them. We all have limitations. And may I suggest that accepting the limitations is not so bad. Now, the question is, how are we limited? Let's go to our next slide. We are limited by, first of all, by our genetics. Right? Our genetics shape us in many ways. Genes influence our behavior, our psychological characteristics, our intellectual ability, So some people have this high IQ, some have a low IQ, some in the middle, and that's all got to do with our DNA, our genes. Genes affect our personality. Genes also affect our physical ability, right? For better or for worse. For example, when both my parents were really sporty when they were younger. My dad was a long-distance runner. He set the record at school. A really good physical ability. My mom too. I think she wasn't as sporty as my dad, or as good as my dad, but they were both sporty. Mom, if you listen to this, I do apologize. And so I have the same genes, right? So sports for me comes naturally. So I can pick up a bat or a ball, whatever, and I can play sport quite easily. But even though I was a pretty good sportsman, my physical ability was limited. It was capped at a certain point. Right, so I was quite good at cricket. I mean, my top score in grade 7 was, I think, 114 not out. Not bad for a 25-over game. I captained the cricket team, captained the hockey team. But then I went to Western Province trials in grade 7. And I was like, you know what, this is easy peasy, this is a done deal. I'm going to get my provincial colours, Bob's your uncle. And I didn't get it. I made it all the way to the end, I made it to the final round, and I didn't make it. And you can imagine a little grade 7 boy who loves cricket. I bawled my eyes out because all I wanted was my provincial colours and to play for South Africa one day. And so even though I was good at sport, I was limited I was capped at a certain level. My physical ability was capped. So we have physical limitations. We're also limited by our minds. That's this nice little artistic picture at the bottom here. Right? Nobody knows everything. Nobody is an encyclopedia. Right? We all miss things. We're also limited by our gifting. There's the dancing lady. Almost forgot which picture it was. Right? I only have so many gifts. You only have so many gifts, and vice versa. We're also limited by our personalities and emotional wiring. Right? We only have so much capacity. Some have huge capacity, like my friend Duvan. He's a good example. He's a high capacity man, a high capacity individual. Right? The way that this man works is absolutely, it just sounds exhausting to me because I don't have your capacity. Let's just be honest. You have incredible capacity, you know. So some people are limited by their capacity for people. The other one is, or just emotional capacity. The other one is we are limited by seasons of life and responsibilities. That's this cute little picture here with the boy on the dad's shoulders. Right, so think about seasons of life where your time is limited. How many of you went to trade school or college or university? You did some kind of study or training after school, right? How much extra time did you have at that time? Probably not much. If you're a diligent student or apprentice or whatever, you probably didn't have much extra time. Well, think about when you're raising young children, like us. Our time is very, very limited. You know, since my kids were born, I've been crazy busy. This has been the busiest season of my life up to this point in time. Well, think about when you are caring for dying parents. You don't have a lot of extra time. So sometimes we are limited by our seasons. And so this is not a complete list. These are just a few examples. The point I'm making is that we are limited. And I'm not trying to discourage any one of us from following our dreams or from giving our very best. No. What I'm saying is that we have limitations. And it's not a bad thing to sometimes accept our limitations. Because when we accept our limitations, we can let go of some things that are not for us, not meant for us. And we can concentrate on our strengths, the things that we do well, and allow ourselves to embrace who we truly are. Secondly, when we accept our limitations, it actually liberates us. Think about it. Right? You don't have to be like so-and-so. Okay? You don't have to be engaged in every activity that comes your way. If it's not your strength, it's okay. Right? Like take maths, for example. I'm like shocking. Like I'm terrible when it comes to maths. So I'm not going to pursue maths, right? But somebody else might. So what some of us do is we fight our limitations, and we try and be engaged in a million activities, and it's silly. In fact, it makes us less productive and less fulfilled in life. How many of you know John Maxwell? He's the legendary leadership guru, and I want to read a quote from him. He says, "Focusing on weaknesses instead of limitations, instead of strengths, is like having a handful of coins, a few made of pure gold and the rest of tarnished copper, and setting aside the gold coins to spend all your time cleaning and shining the copper ones in hopes of making them look more valuable. No matter how long you spend on them, they will never be worth what the gold ones are. Go with your greatest assets. Don't waste your time. Don't let your weaknesses get in the way of you reaching your full potential. Focus on what you do well and capitalize on that. You're in a position of leadership for a reason. Your strengths helped you get there. Appreciate them, hone them, as they are like gold." And I've heard John Maxwell talk about this before on one of his videos. And he says, there's like 2 or 3 things that he does in life. And that's all that he gives his time to. Right? 3 things. And I can't remember exactly what they were. But one of those is writing. He's an author. He was a pastor for many years. You see, he's got 3 things. I think the one is leadership, the other one was writing, and I think the other one was public speaking or something. And all he does is he focuses on those 3 things, and he tries to become an expert in those things. Because those are the gifts that God has given him. Right? He's not going to waste his time on things that he's not good at. And I think that's one of the secrets of life. So God has designed every one of you with a unique personality, with unique gifting, a unique temperament, and the ability to fulfill God's plan for your life. Peter Scazzero says, "We find God's will for our lives in our limitations." I think that's pretty good. When I read that, I was like, wow. We find God's will for our lives in our limitations. So, the main limitation we all share is time. Right? It doesn't matter who you are. We all have 24 hours in a day. And because of this fact, we need to learn to say no. In fact, we need to constantly say no. Because in the world we're living in now, we've got so many things coming our way, so many options, right? And we need to learn to say no so we can focus on what's the most important. Secondly, we need to learn to live deliberately. If we don't live deliberately, we'll miss out on the most important things in life. I hope you're still with me. The third one is we need to learn to not waste time. And that's so easy to do in this world we're living in, right? I think, how many of you waste time sometimes? I'm waiting for the honest people, because I think that we all waste time, right? Okay, good. It's good to be honest. I think all of us waste time, right? And for some of us, and I want you to hear me, for some of us, our busyness and our overload is self-inflicted. Right? Because we allow ourselves to become distracted. And, So what do we waste our time on? And I want to go to the next slide. Alright, so time wasters. Okay, you can't see the picture of it. The guy's basically sitting on a branch, and he's cutting the branch over here, and the trees over there, so or behind him. So you won't get that. There's a TV in the top there, and of course you've got all the social media icons on the side there. So let's start with social media scrolling. That's a big waste of time, isn't it? And I must say, I do quite a bit of that, and I'm trying to stop. It's what we call digital addiction. It's the dopamine hits, and tons of research and videos have been posted on that type of thing. Do you know that the average social media user spends 2 hours and 30 minutes on social media every single day? I remember watching, it was a Dr. Phil clip from many years ago, And this woman, she spent 10 hours a day on social media. I mean, what a waste of time, eh? Jeez Louise. Get a hobby, man. The other one is TV. Hey, that can be a big time waster. For me personally, I find I don't watch much TV these days. I actually just don't have the time for it. But they say the average American watches around 3 hours of TV every single day. I don't know where they find the time. Things must be different in America. I don't know. Third one is unplanned meals. Right, something practical. So instead of planning your meals, you run back and forth to the shop. Not planning your day, checking your phone constantly, right? Checking every time that little thing pings, you check that phone. That's a big time waste, eh? You check your email every time it comes through, you check your WhatsApp, you check your Facebook notifications, pingy, ping, ping. I've set my phone so that my phone doesn't make a noise, right? It doesn't make a sound at all. Unless somebody phones me, it doesn't make a noise because I don't want to be distracted by my phone. I find it quite irritating. Overloading your to-do list. Anybody done that before? You try and do too much in a day, and because you're trying to do too much, you actually end up doing nothing. Because it becomes like this mountain of overwhelmedness. I just made up a word. Okay. Let's move on. Prioritizing the wrong things and not working smart. Things like that. So we've established that the solution to living a simpler, slower life it's not more time. I've said that we need to simplify our life around what really matters. And secondly, we need to accept our limitations. And I hope that you understand what I meant by that. So, if not, we're constantly going to live life overwhelmed and stressed. And there are a lot of stressed people in the world today. I think I shared a stat last week Sunday where they were saying that the average American is 33% more anxious now compared to this time last year. And by the way, we mustn't underestimate the effect of COVID and what we went through. You know, whether we realize it or not, I think the world experienced trauma during that time. And I think for some people, they're still living with the effects of that time. I'm reading a book right now by John Ulrich. He's the one that wrote Wild at Heart. And he speaks about these things, the effect of COVID on us as a society. So, all right, so the third solution is, and this is the most important, is to follow Jesus. Right, this is a church after all, so we better talk about Jesus in the Bible. Some of you were getting worried. So following Jesus will allow us to live with purpose, to slow down and to live from a place of rest. And it sounds really cliche, but it's true. The answer is found in the Gospels and the way that Christ lived his life. You see, there's a connection between hurry and spirituality. By the way, a very good guy to read is Dallas Willard. I think he's going to become more and more popular as the years go by. I think he passed away in was it 2013? If you haven't read Dallas Willard, please go read his stuff. Another very good guy, Eugene Peterson. They've written extensively on this type of stuff, spirituality, the disciplines. Okay. So how many of you know that Jesus has a solution, a way that can free us from hurry sickness? Well, Jesus was a rabbi. And like every rabbi, he had two things. First of all, he had a yoke. And let's go to our next one. He had a yoke. So not an egg yolk. When I said yoke, some of you are thinking of an egg yolk. That yoke there between the two oxen. And a yoke was an expression that described the way in which a rabbi in the first century read the Torah. Right? It also represented their teachings on how to be human. So teachings on how to carry the weight of life. Because why? Because life can be hard. Life can feel weighty at times. Teachings on marriage, on prayer, on conflict resolution, sex, money. And what made Jesus unique was that he had an easy yoke. You can remember that the rabbis in his day, they would sort of overload the people with these laws and things they had to do. That was a heavy yoke. Christ had an easy yoke, which is quite unique. Secondly, Jesus had disciples. He had apprentices who apprenticed under Jesus. And his apprentices organized their lives around three things. The first one was be with Jesus. Right? If you want to be like somebody, hang out with them. Okay, so just look at your children. They start imitating you for better or for worse. Eh? Sometimes they say a naughty word and you think, oh shit, I should not have said that word. I'm just joking. No, that's true. The second one is to become like Jesus, right? So number one, be with Jesus. Number two, become like Jesus. Okay. In fact, I remember when I worked for my first church, I worked for a Congolese guy, and they in fact used the same apprenticeship model. And he says, they would have like the pastor, and they would have almost like they were mentees. And they use the same thing. These guys would literally spend all their time with the pastor, which I thought was quite cool. I don't know if I would like it, but because I'm an introvert and need my space sometimes. But I can just imagine these guys spending all their time with this pastor, and they apparently went with him everywhere, and ate with him, and they actually used the same mentoring model that Christ used. And I think there's a method to the madness. The third one is do what he would do if he were you. I want to say that again. Do what he would do if he were you. Right, so you're going to remember those three things, eh? So last Sunday I ended by asking, how is your soul? And I want to ask every one of you again, how is your soul doing? Okay? And I said last Sunday, if I can look at you and from the outside you look great. You look fantastic. But how are you really doing in your soul? And I said, we through COVID and coming out of COVID and all that trauma, and I think our souls took a real battering during that time. The isolation thing was hard. Eh? That was a hard thing to deal with. And I want to ask you guys again, how is your soul? Because if your soul is not okay, if your soul is warped, it was battered, then you can reshape it by modeling your life after Jesus and by being his apprentice. By being yoked to Christ, you can find healing for the deepest parts of your soul. And that's true. I like to think of a panel beater. We had to take our car to, was it Dispatch Bodyworks a while back, because we had a drunk guy knocked the back of our car. And then, I don't know how to do it, but there's a lacquer dent there. They managed to make it smooth and perfect. That's what Christ wants to do for you. If your soul is battered, if it's warped, he wants to bring alignment in your soul once again. Everywhere Jesus went, he constantly offered a healing invitation. And what did he say? He said, come, follow me. Or in other words, come and be my apprentice. And by the way, that's an invitation to every one of us. Come. It's not just about, hey, come and be a Christian, put a badge on. It's, hey, come, literally, be my apprentice. Let's look at one of his invitations in Matthew 11. Let's put the slide up. I'm going to close quite soon. It says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me. Notice the words. We read these scriptures a million times, and we don't always take note. Learn from me, for I'm gentle. I love that. I'm humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Let's read the Eugene Peterson's version, the Message Bible. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. I will show you how to take a real rest. We're going to look at it now. Walk with me. I want you to think about the oxen being yoked together. It's a beautiful picture of how we should be living our lives with Christ. Picture the yoke, the oxen walking. Well, they're not going to do this, are they? Because they're yoked. They're going to walk straight. And that's the life that Jesus calls us to be yoked with Him. Where we are not carrying the weight of life, where Christ carries the weight of life, as we are yoked with Jesus. Some people, some Christians are being taken out. Some Christians are being crushed by the weight of life because they do not have a rule of life. And we're going to look at that now. Because they're not practicing the disciplines. They're not walking with Christ every day. And life is crushing them. Right? Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you will learn to live freely and lightly. Do you understand it's something that you learn? It's not something that automatically happens when you become a Christian. Right? You with me? So this really is an invitation for all the tired people. Is anybody tired? This is an invitation for the burnt out ones, for the stressed ones, for those of us that are stuck in our to-do lists and don't know how to come up for air. Christ's invitation is to take up His easy yoke, to travel by His side, to step out of the burned out society and to enter a life of rest. Now you might say, well, I'm a follower of Jesus. I've been a Christian for like 20 years. Am I missing something? Because I'm tired. Hey Devin, I've got paptijs. It's a nice Afrikaans saying for you. My wife likes to use that expression. I've got paptijs. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus. I can have my quiet times, but I'm still tired. Am I missing something? Is anybody like that? And maybe you are. Maybe I am. Dallas Willard, I mentioned him earlier, he called it the secret of the easy yoke. And it's something which you only realize after many years of being a Christian. And he says this, he says, the secret involves living as Jesus lived in the entirety of His life, adopting His overall lifestyle. And what he's saying is very simple, but it's very profound. Right? Can I say it one more time? If you want to live like Jesus did, you have to adopt His lifestyle. You with me? It is literally a way of life, which is very different to the way of the world. Some Christians are living like the world and they're wondering why they don't have rest and peace. Because it's a different way of life. We read stories about Jesus and about His incredible peace and His unanxious presence, His relaxed manner. And we think, well, I want that life. Have you ever done that when you've read a story about Jesus and you think, man, oh man, and he comes across as like a laid-back Californian surfer, just like everything's cool, man. And you think, I would like to be like that. I've had that thought myself. But then, you know what? For some of us, we want that lifestyle, but we're not willing to adopt. We want what Christ displays, but we're not willing to adopt the lifestyle. And that's where we get it wrong. Because we mustn't think that following Jesus is something that we actually do. Are you with me? You can say you're a Christian, and that's okay, but following Jesus is something else. We say Jesus is the way, the truth, and life. But the truth gets way more attention than the way. We need to put more emphasis on the way. Right? Because following Christ isn't just about agreeing with truth, theology, ideas. It's that plus more. It's about living a lifestyle, a Jesus lifestyle. You with me? So, we need to become His apprentice. You need to take His life as a template for your own. So what does His template look like? This is, when a pastor says, I'm going to stop now, it's actually a lie. But this really is the closing part. What does His template look like? Think about the Jesus lifestyle. How did He live His life? How did He live from such an incredible place of rest and peace, which we all want? Well, first of all, Christ was never hurried. Have you noticed that in the Gospels? He was never hurried. Okay, many of us are so hurried. It doesn't matter how much pressure was on Christ. He was never hurried. And by the way, he was busy. Okay? We mustn't think that Jesus wasn't busy. He was busy. Okay? In John 11, we read that Christ's friend Lazarus was sick. Really sick. I'm about to die sick. And so Mary and Martha, they sent a message to Jesus to let him know. And they said to him, the one you love is sick. Let's read his response in verse 4. When he heard this, Jesus said, the sickness will not end in death. No, it's for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and his sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Yeah? And then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. Lazarus was a good buddy. He can heal him, no problem. He's heard that he's sick. What does he do? Does he rush to get there? No. He stays 2 more days. Right? Come on. Let's think about another one. There's a story where a guy, remember the story about Jairus' daughter? He comes and he falls at the feet of Christ. His daughter's dying. And he begs Jesus to come and heal his daughter. And then on his way to Jairus' house, the woman with the issue of blood touches Jesus. And what does he do? He doesn't say, hey, leave me alone, I'm on my way, I'm on a mission. He stops and he gives it all the time in the world. Jesus was never hurried. Jesus managed to be in the moment, to connect with God and to connect with people. And you know what? You know why it was like that? It was an outworking of his way of life, which every one of us in this room can have. Okay. The secondly is that Jesus inserted a healthy dose of margin in his life. Right? For many of us, there's no space between our to-dos. Right? There's no room to breathe. And we wonder why we can't breathe. Jesus got up early in the morning to go to a quiet place and pray on a regular basis. Sometimes he would go away for a night or even for weeks to get away from the crowds and to regather himself and spend time with Father. On more than one occasion, we read stories about Jesus sleeping in and the disciples having to wake him up. I like that kind of Jesus. Eh? Thirdly, Jesus practiced Sabbath every week, which is a practice that I don't think many of us practice anymore. Or at least not like we should. Remember when shops were closed on Sundays? Eh? You guys remember that time? Paul, you guys are sharing some stories from back in the day. Times have changed. And by the way, if you missed last week's message, go and listen to it, because I basically explained to you how life has accelerated to a frenetic pace, and how that started and how we got here. Times have changed. The pace of life is much quicker. So Christ practiced Sabbath every week, an entire day set aside for rest and for worship. And in fact, I met was a Seventh-day Adventist. I met this person the other day, and this person, I was having a conversation with this person, and you know what this guy asked me? He asked me, "Why don't you Christians practice Sabbath?" Right? Because obviously he's seeing that Christians aren't making time to rest and worship and be with friends or be with family. And by the way, when I preach to you, I always preach to myself. So Jesus showed us how to live an unhurried life. And then he turned around to every one of us and said, "Come, follow me." And what that means is to live the way that Jesus lived. And you might say, well, hold on a minute, I'm not Jesus. Jesus was a single first century rabbi. I'm not. I'm living in 2023. How can I possibly be like Jesus? That's the wrong question. The correct question is, how would Jesus live if he were me? Remember, that was point number 3. What would Jesus do if he was you? So I'll use myself as an example. I'm a dad, I've got 2 kids, and Jesus wasn't a dad. But I think that if Jesus was a dad, if you were in my shoes, he would spend a lot of time with his kids. He would make family a priority, right? Let's say that you're a mom and you're homeschooling your kids, or you work in an office, or you manage a farm. You need to ask, how would Jesus do this? That's the key question. And lastly, we can put up our final slide. Do you like the chicken? It was quite cute, huh? By the way, I don't make PowerPoint makes it all fancy for you, so I'm giving away my secrets here. So I'm not that good. The last thing that we need is a rule of life based on the life of Christ. And if you think of a rule of life is a set of practices to order your life around the way of Jesus. It's a way to keep you from getting sucked into hurry, into busyness, from noise and distraction of regular life. And the word rule might sound a bit restrictive or boring, but the Latin word we translate rule was originally the word used for trellis in a vineyard. I'm sure that we can all relate living in the valley. So a vine needs a trellis to lift it off the ground so it can produce maximum amount of fruit. A rule of life is like a trellis. It's a structure. It's a set of practices that helps you make abiding in Christ the central pursuit of your life. If a vine doesn't have a trellis, it will die. If your life with Christ doesn't have some kind of structure to facilitate health and growth, it will wither away. The same closing, I want to ask you, do you have a trellis for your vine? A schedule or some practices for love and joy to become the default setting of your life? And like I said, next week we're going to look at some of some of Christ's practices that enable him to live a life of peace and rest. So I'm going to stop there. And I've battled through that. I've got quite a bit of, I've had a cold for the past week.